Welcome to the Haunted 365, and for those of you that are only subscribers to this channel, you may not realize that this channel was born actually from my other YouTube channel, DIYMonkey. A couple years ago, I made a few Halloween-themed tutorials and posed the question, should I start a Halloween and horror-themed channel? And of course, you know the answer to that now. It took a couple years, but here I am. And for this video, I decided to take those original 3 videos that I did on my original channel and post them here on this channel in a condensed version in a compilation. And if you enjoy these videos, I'll be sure and leave a link in the description to the original full-length versions. So without further ado, let's take a look back at where it all started. And don't forget to keep it creepy. For this project, we'll be starting off with a cheap plastic Halloween skeleton prop. You can pick these up at most of the Halloween stores if they're in season. If not, you can find them online and they usually range around $50 or so. You'll also need a plastic drop cloth, really thin. This one came from the Dollar Tree, a heat gun, and several paints. For this, we'll be using red, black, and brown latex paint and a brown stain. You can either use a leather stain or even something like Minwax wood stain will work too. You'll start off by wrapping the skeleton several times around the torso with the plastic drop cloth. Once you've wrapped several layers of the plastic drop cloth around the torso, you'll then take your heat gun and slowly move over the plastic sheeting, and it will begin to contract, and essentially it shrink wraps itself onto the skeleton. You can create interesting holes in the plastic by lingering over one area with the heat gun, but not for too long, just only long enough to melt through the plastic and not the plastic skeleton underneath. The knees tend to look a little better if you add a little extra of the plastic sheeting around them to bulk them up. Wrap the head with 2 or 3 layers of the plastic drop cloth and then hit it as well with the heat gun, paying close attention to making sure that you burn holes for the eyes and the mouth. If you're not happy with the way a particular area has turned out, you can always peel the plastic off and add more, or you could just add more onto the layers that you already have. Hit it with the heat gun again and keep trying until you find something you like. For my first layer, I'm going to be using a tan leather stain. Apply it generously all over the plastic, and once you have an area completely covered, just take some paper towel and wipe away all the excess. The dark colored stain will stay in all of the tiny details and grooves and folds of the plastic. Continue this process of applying the stain, wiping it away with the paper towel all over the entire skeleton, front and back. Once you've wiped away all the excess, just let it sit and dry for an hour or 2 before moving on to the next step. Next, I'm going to mix up a small amount of the red latex paint and add to that some chocolate brown colored latex paint, proportionally much more red than brown. Mix these two together to create a very fleshy, muscular looking color. And much like the staining technique, you will apply this completely all over the skeleton, one section at a time, and then going afterward with a paper towel and wiping off all the excess. Try to keep the majority of the paint off of the teeth and exposed bone on the head. If you get a little on there, just use a paper towel to wipe it off before it dries. Once you're completely finished with this step, just let the skeleton dry for another hour or so. Next, we're going to be using a small amount of black latex paint on the brush and carefully going over only the high areas of the plastic. All of the high areas and wrinkles will pick up the black paint and make all the detail really stand out. And once again, be careful to only get the paint on the plastic sheeting and not the skeleton itself. Use the black paint to lightly go around any of the holes that were formed in the plastic to make them stand out even more. All the different textures and folds that are formed and all the holes and things like that in the plastic as it shrinks gives the illusion of tendons and different sinewy tissues. On this area on the top of the head, you can see that I had a bit of a happy accident where the plastic got really thick, and as I tried to burn through it, it didn't go all the way through, but left a very convincing wound that looks like part of the scalp is missing on this area. Use things like this to your advantage and make them stand out even more by dry brushing the edges. It will really help bring out the depth. And lastly, I went over the teeth with a mixture of the black and the red paint and immediately wiped it away so it only stayed in the recesses in between the teeth to make the teeth stand out that much more. Just a few touch-ups and little added details here and there, and this corpsing job is finished. And your $50 Halloween store skeleton is now something truly frightening. It's amazing how realistic of a look you can achieve just using a Dollar Tree plastic drop cloth, a heat gun, and a few different colors of paint. For this project, you'll need a plastic skull, some squares of toilet paper with the edges torn off so they have frayed edges, some chip brushes, some paints, Q-tips, and something to mix paint in. And gloves would also be a good idea. You'll also need a few ounces of liquid latex. You can pick this up at Halloween stores when they're open and it's that time of the year, or you can always find it year-round on the internet. We have a just really cheap skull that I got from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to turn it into something a little more cool looking using a corpsing technique utilizing latex and toilet paper. Once you have the area thoroughly covered with the latex, just take a piece of your toilet paper with the edges torn off and lay it over the top. Then you'll take some more latex on your brush and go over the layer of toilet paper. Try not to smooth out the toilet paper with the latex too much because that's the opposite of what we want to have happen here. The more wrinkles and the more messed up it looks, the better. When it's time to go around the eyes, just go ahead and put the toilet paper completely over them and get it thoroughly wet. After that, you can take a Q-tip and poke holes in the eye sockets and then use the Q-tip dipped in latex to push the edges inside the eye socket so they curve inward and don't just have a ripped edge around the socket. They actually go inside. Once you have everything covered, just carefully lay it down on something to dry, and that will take about an hour to an hour and a half to get completely dry. You can speed the process along with a hairdryer or even just setting up a desktop fan blowing over it. That will speed up the process of drying. The next step is to completely cover the entire skull except for the plastic areas that you left exposed, like the teeth, with a coat of black latex paint. This is just regular latex house paint. Now that the first coat of black paint has dried, I'm just using a kitchen butter knife to go over the plastic parts that may have gotten some of the black paint on them. Once the paint is dry, it just scrapes right off. Here I have a 1-inch chip brush that I've cut down in half. It will make the bristles even and a lot stiffer, which will make it a lot easier to dry brush the skull and keep the paint where you want it. Now I'm just going to mix up a little bit of black acrylic paint as well as a touch of green and a touch of red and a drop of white just to lighten the mixture a little bit. I'm going to mix that thoroughly just using a Q-tip and then dip the brush into the paint and try to remove a lot of it just on a scrap piece of paper or some paper towel. And then you're just going to lightly go over the high points of the skull. Now I'm going to mix up another batch of acrylic paint using black, a little bit of white, and a touch of green. And without cleaning the brush, I'm going to dip into that and go over the whole skull again, paying special attention to the cheekbones and the high detail areas of the texture. Up until this point, we haven't been trying to add any real detail to the skull, but just break up the black color a little bit with these first couple layers. But now it's time for detail, and for that, I'm just going to put a little bit of white paint out onto the palette and try and rub off as much as I can of the black paint and dark colors already on my brush onto a paper towel. And now with an extremely light touch, I'm just going to carefully brush over the highest points of the detail in the skull, paying special attention to go around the eye sockets and the cheekbones, a little over the nose and around the jawline just to bring that area out a little more. He's looking pretty good at this point, but I'm going to take it a little further and put out just a touch more white paint and just do an even lighter layer just pretty much around the eye sockets and cheekbones and areas like that, just to bring out the actual shape of the skull. The higher contrast will make it a little easier to see in low lighting conditions, like if you have it outside at night or anything like that, it'll make the detail pop out just that much more. And for the last step, I'm going to mix just a little bit of red and black acrylic paint and mix it with a Q-tip, and then use the Q-tip that I mixed with to rub all over the teeth and the gums and anywhere that I still have the original plastic skull exposed. The way it comes, it's quite shiny and kind of has a weird, unnatural yellow look, and this will just kind of stain it and make it look a little bit more natural and a little more gross. Once you have all those areas covered, you just take a paper towel that's been slightly dampened and you want to go over the teeth especially, just to make them a little more white. Just lightly rub over the exposed plastic areas and get off a decent amount of paint, but a lot will be left behind, especially in the deeper details like around the teeth and the gum line, which will make it look even that much better. And there you have it. You have a pretty cool looking skull prop for your Halloween decor, and just by taking a cheap $1 skull that looked really cheap and plasticky and cartoony to begin with and turn it into something pretty cool. For this project, you'll need a coat hanger, a kitchen knife, a pair of scissors, some tape. I'm going to use masking tape, but electrical tape or duct tape would work. Some sort of foam tubing, a hot glue gun, and several packages of Halloween creepy cloth. We'll begin by untwisting the end of the coat hanger and straightening the coat hanger completely out the best you can. Once you have the coat hanger straightened out, find the center and bend the coat hanger in half. Now come down 3 or 4 inches and bend the coat hanger out on each side. Take your foam tubing and cut it to length. Then using tape, attach the foam tubing to the coat hanger wire. Using the kitchen knife, cut a slit in the bottom of a plastic skull. This is the skull that we made in the latex corpsing video. Next, we're going to slide the coat hanger into the slit in the bottom of the skull to test fit it. Next, we'll unfold a package of the creepy cloth that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. Drape the cloth over the coat hanger with the neck part sticking out of the top in the middle. Next, we'll unfold another section of creepy cloth and lay it in the opposite direction of the one before. So you have one that is providing the length and the other one is placed on width-wise to cover the arms. Next, I'm going to lay over a layer of the black creepy cloth over these two layers. And once again, one I will hang to where it hangs lengthwise to give me the length, and I'll unfold a second one and then place it side to side so it covers the arms. Once it's all covered in the layers of creepy cloth, I'm going to use some scissors and just my fingers to dishevel the cloth a little bit and make it a little more ragged and interesting. I'm going to use just a dab of hot glue where the coat hanger inserts into the bottom of the skull just to help keep it in place. Next, I'm going to take another piece of creepy cloth, this time a dark charcoal gray color, and drape it over the skull like a hood. Next, I'm going to take sections of fluoro wire and use that to cinch the two pieces of creepy cloth and everything together underneath the chin of the skull. You could also use bread twisty ties for this as well. The very last step, you'll just need to fashion some sort of hook or hanger on the back of the hanging skull guy, so that way you have a way to hang him up, and your newest piece of Halloween decor is now finished. This could be a fun project to do if you have kids, and you could make several of these in a day.